Hello, fellow human starseed light beings. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. Today, as I'm live streaming this, it is Saturday, September 22nd. If you're in the United States, it's Friday, September 22nd. If you're in the United States. If you're on my side of the world, I'm in Australia. This is Saturday, September 23rd. So we're technically one day away from whatever the 23rd is going to bring us. A lot of people think that something intense is going to happen. Vedic astrology says that there is very likely going to be a very serious event that will take place that will affect, at the very least, the United States government. But we have yet to see, as technically it's still the 22nd, according to that. So today we're going to be talking about the solar flash again. And today I want to share with you some understandings that I have found through my research as well as my own personal interactions having to do with light, and specifically the light of the stars. How does the light of the stars interact with soul energy? Is it possible that the solar flash event, whatever that is, could that be a transporter beam to a higher dimension? And then I want to talk to you about temples in general and what I believe that the reason for temples were, including pyramids. I do not believe that pyramids were ever designed to be tombs. Later, of course, they were. If we're talking about Egypt, if you have done any research into paleoanthropology and some of the controversy surrounding that, there is far more evidence that says that, for instance, the Pyramid of Giza, those pyramids are tens of thousands of years old, not 4,000 or 5,000, tens of thousands of years old. And so the pyramids that were used as tombs, the ones that look much more primitive, are actually the ones that were made later, during the dynastic period. What we think of as Egypt is the pharaohs, but actually Egypt has been a focal point for human society going back tens of thousands of years at least. So the real question is, what is that all about? So if you're new to the channel, before I get deeper into this, if you're new to the channel, this channel is designed to give you practical technologies that you can use that are guaranteed to change you, to shift you energetically, spiritually, opening up your chakras, opening up the meridians, opening up the three dantians. I teach you the threefold energy practices that have been found all over the world. I've synthesized them. To my knowledge, I'm the first person to do that successfully. And on this channel, depending on what practices you do, you will be combining Qigong, which is life force energy, which is very important. Electrify the body, electrify the cells, have this free energy that's around you. The amount of energy that's just in between my fingers here is enough to completely destroy multiple planets. There's so much energy just in the air around you. Qigong allows you to take that energy into your body and empower yourself with it, connect yourself with it, not only energetically but consciously. And then we have Kundalini. Kundalini is not life force energy. It is something else. It is the energy of consciousness that actually is what is in the fifth dimension. So if you were to go into the fifth dimension, the life force energy of the fifth dimension, if you will, is actually Kundalini. It is a light energy, and it gives you consciousness, and that goes up the spinal column and opens up what we call the chakras. And then there's a third energy that almost nobody knows about, that the ancient Maoshan Taoists of China, who are reported to be the most powerful magicians on the planet. They were able to tap into another source of energy, which they called the Shin, or the heart mind. And the heart mind is actually electricity. It is the power of electromagnetism that surrounds the heart. There's a reason why when somebody dies, we get those paddles and we jolt them with electricity, because we actually have this reservoir. This electric energy is normally self-contained. So it's just there to protect the soul. It is literally a cage for the soul to exist, because the soul is a multidimensional being. You are a light being. Imagine a light being, an infinite light being, and putting it into a third dimensional shell. It has to have something that allows it to stay there, and that is the electromagnetic force. And these Taoist masters, as a result of being revealed information from higher dimensional beings, they learn to take that energy and actually release it out of their body through their hands, primarily in a lot of the practices. And it gave them the ability to destroy negativity simply with their presence. They had the ability, if there was a demon that was, imagine the worst demon attack, they could walk in and they could destroy that demon with their bare hands because of the electromagnetic higher dimensional energy that they released from their heart center. I've combined all this together into one practice, which I teach on multiple places. So if you're going to spend time on this channel and you're new to the channel, go to the playlists, go to the Qigong playlists and begin doing that. Begin doing the exercises like the Huul breath, H-U-U-L breath. Also, I encourage you to go to the free guided interdimensional meditations on the playlists on the channel. Now, if you're dead serious about learning this and you want somebody to guide you, great. Go here to thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. You can unsubscribe whenever you want and just simply follow my instructions. I show you in video exactly what to do, what postures, breaths, things like that, in order to release this energy. All right, getting back to the topic. Solar flash as transporter beam to 5D, temples as portals of the gods. So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing, again, research, and I'm listening to Graham Hancock, is that his name? Fingerprints of the Gods. I'm finding it very interesting as he's talking about the discovery of an ancient Earth civilization going back, before the Ice Age or during the Ice Age, which would be at least, 12,000 years. And he posits that the pyramids were built at that time, and he follows along similar understandings that Egyptologists have, which is, that's not what I want to, let's look here. So Egyptologists have this understanding that the pyramids have within them portals that allow the soul to go to the river of light, which is, you see here on the right hand side, the Milky Way, and the stars that are important to it. And of course, from Leo to Orion is supposed to be the pathway of the soul. So bear in mind, everything that you believe is based on assumptions. So what I like about Graham Hancock is that he is challenging the assumption of modern science, because modern science has this assumption. It's a blanket assumption that human beings were incapable of any kind of technological advancement before the end of the Ice Age. According to scientists, at the end of the Ice Age, then hunter-gatherers somehow figured out how to farm and how to make boats and sail the seas and, create, all the stuff that they created. And that's an assumption. So if you operate from that assumption, then every single conclusion you come to has to go by that. So when you find civilizations that go beyond that, like clearly the pyramids, I mean, you know, the Sphinx itself is clearly older than a few thousand years. But if your assumption is that that's not possible, then you just simply choose not to believe it. And you make up weird excuses, and you just don't look at things. You don't look for things you don't believe exist. So that's what I like about him, because he's willing to challenge that assumption. Now, this challenging of assumptions is an integral part of critical thinking. Critical thinking is not something that is done just by people who have PhDs. There are no shortage of scientists who have PhDs who do not have critical thinking. Don't believe me? Listen to medical science over the past 3 years. People have their sacred cows, which means that they have emotional attachments to their beliefs, which means that if you tell them, especially a scientist, if you tell them that their beliefs are wrong, they're going to get frightened. It's not, people think it's about ego, that, you know, scientists have their ego involved. It's not it. Most scientists really do want to know the truth, and most scientists really want to look at objective facts. But scientists are human beings, and human beings have emotional attachments. There's the current scientific model is based on the belief that we live in an empty universe, and a lot of scientists gravitate towards that and become attached to that for very understandable reasons. It's because they don't want to get it wrapped up with the ridiculousness of religion. The monotheist religion that's, you know, you're going to go to hell if you don't believe in this and do that. That's an understandable thing. But what's ironic about that is that actually the belief that the earth itself has no spiritual essence to it, that the universe is an empty universe with no spiritual essence, that actually came from religion. Before the monotheist religions, you had animism. People use the word shamanism. Animism is simply the belief that everything contains consciousness, that everything contains spirit. Now, if you are somebody who's devoted to science, knowledge, and you want to know the truth, and you're only going to look at the evidence that you can prove, and you have the assumption that the cosmos, plants, animals, people, rocks, trees, stars, are just chemicals bouncing around, and that there's no consciousness to it, then you're gonna every conclusion you come to is going to come from that. So imagine a world where science has an assumption, that the same assumption that shamans have, which is that everything has consciousness to it. Now, we're starting to come into that now as the modern science of physics is running into things like string theory and all that other stuff that's, you know, above my head. But they come to the same conclusion that the shamans of old came to, which is that reality is created by our perception. And the most famous experiment that proves that is that experiment that's been done multiple times, which is trying to determine whether light photons are waves or particles. And without getting into that, you can go look that up if you want. The conclusion that they originally came to when they did that experiment was that light acted as either a wave or a particle, depending upon the intention of the observer. If the observer wanted to see light as a particle, it showed up as a particle. If they wanted to see it as a wave, it showed up as a wave. And if you watch some of the really weird things they do to try and fool light, because they assume they can fool light, like light doesn't know, it's not psychic and doesn't know what you're thinking and feeling. No matter what they do, light always responds based on the intention of the observer. And in some of the later experiments, it not only became the result that light responded in a way in harmony with the intention of the observer, but it was seen that light actually would go back in time, change its behavior so that it would end up looking exactly the way you want it to. So in other words, light is doing its thing until just before it hits that wall, and then it decides, oh, he wants me to be a particle. It goes back into time, changes everything so it'll look like a particle when it shows up. Now, how they figured that out, I don't remember. It's all above my head. So science is now coming around to the understanding that everything has consciousness. We're talking about light today, so it's only appropriate that I unconsciously started talking about that experiment with light. So I'm going to go even further back in time than Graham Hancock. I don't think that the pyramids were built right after the ice ages, because his assumption is that a lot of the things that we see, and I don't dispute things like Göbekli Tepe and other things like that. The assumption he has is that there was a cataclysm that destroyed a very advanced global civilization on Earth, and the survivors of that civilization then traveled around the world and taught local hunter-gatherers, everything that they knew, which is why all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have hunter-gatherers like Göbekli Tepe is a good example. About 12,000 years ago, right at the very end of the Ice Age, all of a sudden you have these hunter-gatherers magically creating the most elaborate, most technologically advanced megalithic site so far in history. So his assumption is that these highly advanced surviving humans, he's assuming they're humans, went all over the world and started teaching people what we now look at as being highly advanced technology. But what if the pyramids are actually the remnants of that extremely powerful global civilization before the ice ages came to an end, before the catastrophe? I believe that is true. So I believe, again, it's a conflation. People conflate. This is, if you want to know what conflation means, it's a good, understanding conflation is very important to critical thinking. Conflation means you take something that is true and something that is false and you mix them together. This is my biggest complaint with anything having to do with extraterrestrials and aliens. The vast majority of it, 99% of everything that you hear and see and read, is conflation. That's why I only go by my personal experiences that I can validate, which that's a whole other story. And again, let me just, because I have so many thoughts at one time, I almost never finish any one concept I introduce. Critical thinking is, the goal of critical thinking is to find the truth. And the assumption of critical thinking is that every single human has an emotional attachment to everything. You have an emotional response to everything. And the critical thinker says, I am not going to allow my emotional attachments to determine what I believe. In the case of modern scientists, many of them have an emotional attachment to the assumption that the universe is empty, that there's no soul to it, there's no energy, there's no consciousness. And so every single thing they look for has to fit within that. So when you start getting into weird things like, quantum quantum entanglement, then that starts messing with that belief, which is why they sort of stop dead at that and they don't go beyond and say, well, we've proven that the universe has consciousness to it. Because the problem with that is that the religious people will say, see, we told you God existed this whole time. Now, I don't believe in the Abrahamic monotheist belief. And again, it was Abrahamic monotheism that started the belief. It laid the foundation that the earth was evil. That's why when in places in Europe, if you find anything that's called Devil's Hill, because you'll find it all over the place, Devil's Hill, Devil's Spring, they're all over Europe. There are places scattered with that name. Those were places where the pre-Christian native people worshipped the gods of the land. They knew that the land held consciousness in it. And so when the Catholic priests came in and started, by putting a knife to your neck and saying you're going to believe in Jesus or die, when they started doing that, they wanted people to stop going to these places, because even after people became Christians, they would go to these sacred wells and these springs and they would do offerings and all that. And the church didn't want that. The church, by the way, was the mainstream. This is a great analogy, and it's really as true as it can get. The Catholic Church was the mainstream media of the Middle Ages. And the mainstream media tells you what to believe. And they have a gun. If you don't believe me, look at what's happening with Russell Brand. I have no idea if he's guilty of these allegations, but let's just take a look at what we know. What we know is that he, for a while now, has been very successfully gaining popularity. Doing what? Attacking the mainstream media's credibility, attacking the corruption in government, the World Economic Forum, right? And so what do? Out of nowhere, you hear of media outlets, the mainstream media. I believe it's a television station and a newspaper, if I have it right, coming together and doing an investigation on him and coming up with now five women who accuse him of sexual assault, including a minor. None of this has been brought to the police. None of this has been established through a trial. It has only been brought to the attention of the public through the mainstream media. They not only did that, but then they hired actors who then voice these supposed allegations from these unnamed mystery women. But when you watch the mainstream media, you will see actors, you will see a movie, and you will hear these women who are actors portraying supposedly what these victims said. And then that is presented to the public. And then it gets worse. Then the government, the UK government is now, because there's a law passed that will allow them to not only censor people that they don't like, but take away their living. So the UK government, whatever that woman's name, the minister, sends out letters to Rumble and everybody else and basically says to them, I want you to deplatform him. Take away his ability to make money. This is somebody who hasn't been convicted of a crime. And yet he's being punished. This is exactly what the church did. The church in the Middle Ages was the mainstream media. And the mainstream media would go, and if you were going to the sacred well and worshiping the spirit of the well, the church would come after you. You'd get hung, you'd get killed, you'd get flayed alive, you'd get thrown into prison, you'd get called a witch. This is what we're dealing with now. And it all stems from the assumption that religion had, which is that the earth is evil. Now, the modern translation of the earth being evil is modern science, which, by the way, modern science came out of the church. The church is where you had the first doctors and physicians and scientists and all of that. That came from the church. So the church saying that the earth is evil, you translate that into modern scientific understanding, and modern scientists say we have no proof of anything life after death. We have no proof of consciousness. We have no proof of that. The universe is empty. The sun is just a giant ball of gas. There's no energy in it. There's no consciousness in it. But their assumption is making them believe that. Now, in their minds, they're like, no, we're critical thinkers. We're not letting religion tell us what to believe. But the truth is, religion is the one that started all of that with the earth is evil, devil's hill, devil's spring. And so the true scientists that came before that, if we accept the assumption that Graham Hancock is giving us, which is that there was a global, highly developed civilization on planet Earth, their science was completely different in that their assumption came from the shamanic understanding that everything is filled with consciousness. Everything has energy, everything has life, and that there are multiple dimensions. That this is, as the Vedic said, this is Maya, this is illusion. Modern science is struggling with that. They're starting to look into the idea that there are higher dimensions, but if you go back 100 years, they're going to say, this is it. This is reality. There's nothing beyond this. It's all woo-woo, hoo-hoo stuff that there's, life after death. We don't know that. I can't measure that with my little thing. I can't see it. I can't feel it. It doesn't exist. And again, he doesn't realize that what he's doing is he is just simply retranslating the mainstream media of the Middle Ages, which said the earth is evil. Stop worshiping the earth. Stop worshiping consciousness. You can only find consciousness through our teaching, which is then, they hijack the phrase of Jesus, I and the Father are one. No man comes to the Father but through me. Right? There's no religion that's ever said that. Ever. It's never, ever said that. Every religion says you can find God, however you choose to believe that, anywhere. You can find it within yourself. You can find it in a leaf. You can find it in a plant. You can find it in the clouds. You can find it in the stars. You can find consciousness everywhere because consciousness is everything. You see, it's a completely different assumption. So when I look at the pyramids here, I'm going back to that assumption. Not the assumption that's been fed down your throat based on the modern science doesn't have any clue. Historically, archaeologically, scientifically, has zero clue where the pyramids came from. The belief that, for instance, that big pyramid there, which they call the Pyramid of Cheops or Khufu, that came from somebody during the life of Khufu, probably Khufu himself, told somebody to go put his name in it. It's graffiti. When you see somebody tagging the wall, like they put their gang name on it and somebody doesn't like it, they cross it out. Well, Khufu was just tagging the pyramid. He put his name in it. And some modern guy first went in there, probably in the 1700s or something, and saw Khufu, and he goes, oh, it must be Khufu's pyramid. And that's been the truth ever since. It's Khufu's pyramid. It's his tomb. But they have no way to know that. There's no evidence to show that. Zero. What's interesting, I didn't upload it. I think I didn't upload it. No, I didn't upload it. When you cut open the pyramid of Giza, what you see is multiple chambers. And we've talked about this before, that the king's chamber, I might have it down here somewhere. let's see, is it this? Nope. This? Nope. This? No. Okay, none of those. When you cut open the pyramid, you cut it in half, there are multiple chambers in there. And one of them is called the King's Chamber. There's one called the Queen's Chamber. I'm not an expert in any of this, but I do know that there are multiple shafts that are cut from these chambers, and people call them air holes, right? That this is how you get air into the pyramid. But it just so happens that these air holes are aligned with star constellations. And Sirius is one of them. This is where we get back to, when we get back to this, this is Graham Hancock is saying this was the alignment of the pyramids when the pyramids were created, etc., etc. And it shows this arc of the soul from Leo to Sirius in the Orion's belt. And again, that's an assumption, but it's a pretty good assumption. But again, he has the assumption that this is because the soul leaves. And this I'm just gonna jump into it now because otherwise I'll forget. So he goes on to talk about how Native American cultures had the same belief. Now that is, he can confirm that the Native Americans had megalithic structures and hills and mounds and pyramids and things like that, all of which almost all of them have been completely destroyed by European colonization. But they were aligned in such a way that they were aligned with these stars. Sirius is one of them, the Orion's belt, all these kinds of things. And in their lore, they say that the soul must leap towards them. So the soul at death must choose to leap towards the specific stars. Now, I don't know what the solar flash event is going to be. As you know, I've talked about it in my books. I've talked about it in older videos. If you want to know what it is, you can go watch my video, search for it, called How I Became an Extraterrestrial, and the things that extraterrestrials told me about this upcoming ascension event. Now, I wasn't given any specifics. I was given a few specifics, but not a lot. The main thing I was shown was that there's going to be some event in the sky. I'm thinking it's going to be something of astronomical nature that is going to be seen from everywhere on Earth. Everybody will be able to look up in the sky and see this. And in the dream I was given, it ended after that, and I wasn't told exactly what it was. And I came away from that dream going, "Oh my God, what is this?" When I asked them later, when I meditated and called them and communicated with them later, I said, "What is this event going to be? A fleet of spaceships?" That's the only thing I could imagine. And the answer was no. It is going to be a series of solar waves of love that will penetrate through the earth, and all consciousness, including plants and animals, will shift up to a higher awareness. That's all I was told by them. I still don't know what the heck that means. I came to find out later that just before we got into the solar event that we have been in since the very end of 2022, which is called the solar maximum, combined with a what's called an incursion event, where the magnetic field of the Earth is shifting. You get the combination of these two things, and you have a massive influx of solar radiation hitting Earth at levels that don't happen very often. It's solar maximums happen a lot, but when you have a solar maximum at the same time as an incursion event, the amount of solar radiation hitting the Earth is unprecedented. I talked about it in a video, but gamma radiation, which is not from the sun, it's from the central black hole of our galaxy and other places. Gamma radiation is coming to the Earth through the sun. Science doesn't quite know how that happens, but it's happening. So we're getting an influx of very high level solar radiation, including gamma radiation, that's hitting the Earth. And on December 21st, as it turns out, it would have been, I believe it was December 21st. I can't remember. I've talked about it. I'm sure I made videos on it. So if you want to go back and search the exact date, I believe it was December 21st or 22nd of 2022. Light beings came to me and astrally took me to some place where a bunch of other astral bodies were, another humans. Usually probably humans that are dreaming, or people who work with ETs or starseeds, or maybe some people don't remember it. Like myself, I was conscious because I was in conscious meditation when it happened. And we were taken to this big amphitheater, and there was a ET in the front speaking to everybody. And the message was, "We've brought you all here to announce the event has begun. Today is the day. Go and tell people, go get ready. It's starting." And what they meant by that was the solar wave event, because the solar flash is not a single flash, it's a series of solar waves. And sure enough, that day there was a huge solar storm that hit Earth that morning. As I woke up, I went to sleep after that meditation, and then I was woken up by this incredibly powerful spiritual energy that hit me, and I thought an ET had landed in my room. When I opened my eyes, there was nothing there. I said, "Is anybody there?" There was nobody there. But what I saw in my mind was this picture of the sun, and the sun almost exploding with energy. And I thought, "Oh my God, it's here, it's today." And I went outside and looked, and everything was looking very shiny and different. But other than that, it was fairly normal. The energy level was very high. I could feel all kinds of energy. And I've come to find out since that day, because it has been that way ever since, that every single morning at a certain time, just before the sun comes up over the horizon, my body will get filled with a powerful, conscious, warm, loving energy. Every single morning. And every single morning it feels like an ET has landed in my room, and I realize it's the sun. And the energy is full of love. This has happened as a result of, before the solar wave event, this never happened to me. And there's been multiple times since then. In March, I've made videos about it. We got hit with some major solar storms, and I was told then, it's begun, it's over. Earth, we are now, it's downhill from here. The event is in process. It cannot be stopped. And what I've noticed is that every time we have a solar storm, we just recently had one, so watch, big stuff is going to be revealed. Every time we have a solar storm event, there is something that happens in the world where more revelations come to light and more hostility comes from the deep state. When we look at, again, what's happening with Russell Brand, there's no hiding it. It is very clear that he is being targeted by rich people involved in the media and the governments. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. And this is a result of this wave. This wave is coming and is revealing the true nature of what we've been living under for, some people say, 14,000 years. I have no problem with that assessment. So what I've come to find out is that solar radiation is a direct conduit for consciousness. When I want to have my highest, most powerful interdimensional experiences, I'm always watching to see when we're going to get hit with a solar storm, because I know I'm going to have a very powerful experience. What ends up happening, I'm concluding, is that among other things, this is stimulating the release of DMT in the brain. And as you know, DMT is a gateway chemical. The brain produces this endogenously. So even though there are people that go and do DMT, I don't judge anybody for doing that. I don't recommend doing that, because you're forcing the body to do something that it's not doing naturally. I would prefer that it be done naturally through the Mao Shan practices that I teach and interdimensional meditation. But the waves of light, when they hit me, I can tell you I go into a whole other realm. There's so much DMT in my brain, I can feel it. And I'm living in, like an ayahuasca trip until the sun, calms down again, and then I come back down to normal. So I know for a fact, personally, that the sun sends consciousness, sends spiritual consciousness and love. By the way, this is why Bill Gates wants to block out the sun. You didn't know that? Go look it up. People can't believe I say that. Bill Gates, scientists, the United States government, NASA, they want to release sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere to block out the sun because they say it'll reverse global warming. And then you talk to actual scientists who say, yeah, but if you're flying planes 24/7, the fuel that's being released from those planes is going to offset whatever you're trying to accomplish with that. And then, of course, there are people who say that it's not sulfur dioxide they want to release out of the plane. But I can't get into that because there's no proof for that. That conspiracy theory. We don't indulge in conspiracy theories here. But we do indulge in the solar flash event. But there's a reason why there are very rich, powerful people want to block out the sun. And if I were a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist, I might, without any proof, I might say that Bill Gates is afraid that the consciousness of the sun, if it hits you, will awaken you to your true nature. And if you awaken to your true nature, governments, banks, high tech can't control you anymore. Mainstream media can't control you. They can't make you full of fear. When you can't be controlled, you disengage from the system. Banks lose their money, governments lose their power, high tech loses their ability to own the world. If we have that combined with this upcoming solar event that actually shifts to another world, then we're starting to talk about now the kinds of things that Graham Hancock is talking about, which I don't know what he's saying. I think he's sort of saying that there was an actual physical 3D human society, but what if the society that was on Earth before this calamity, which is recorded in every mythological belief around the world. Now, the Bible, of course, the Old Testament is hijacked from other traditions. It's hijacked from the Sumerian, the Babylonian, the whole story that you read in the Bible. That's all made up or stolen from somewhere else. That's a whole other issue. If you want to know about that, you can read my book, Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward. If you want to know why, you shouldn't believe in Christianity, you got to read that book. You've got to know that it's a smokescreen, that the Jesus is love, Jesus is here to forgive you. That is a smokescreen. You got to get beyond that. I know it's very hard to do because if you take certain things out of context, they're great. The kingdom of God is within you. That's a beautiful saying. God is love. That's a beautiful saying. But when you put it in context of the whole thing, you realize that's a distraction. Somebody's telling you they love you while they're pulling your guts out from your backside. I got off track again. So what if the antediluvian, which means before the flood, what if the antediluvian world civilization wasn't just humans? The other thing you find in these myths about, in Central America and even in other places in the world, Vedic, other places like that, you have these, in some places they're called giants. These giants come and these giants bring knowledge. these giants created these massive pyramids. I don't know. I don't have a problem with them being giants. I don't have a problem with that. There have definitely, I've seen some evidence that that could be the case, but what if that they're spiritual giants? What if these are conscious beings that may not be from Earth? It's okay if they are. I don't need them to be extraterrestrial. But what if they're not from Earth? The reason why I am talking this way is because for the past year and a half, on almost a daily basis, I have been communicating. First, it started with higher dimensional light beings. We would call them extraterrestrials. I started communicating with them. Then the extraterrestrials started introducing me to the deities. So I would do interdimensional meditation. A higher being of light would come, and that being would say, I want to introduce you to somebody. There's somebody that wants to meet you. And they would take me to another realm where I wasn't dealing with an entity that had a physical body. I was dealing with a deity. And in one case, I've shared about it, I was taken to a realm where there were two deities who claimed to be the gods that the gods worshipped. And these two deities, one was masculine and one was feminine. And the feminine deity was pure light and was pure love. And she said, I'm the mother. I'm your mother. And the masculine deity was a deity, the best way to describe it is sort of like gold sparkles in a void, a black void. He was pure power. And he was the essence of lightnings and storms. He was transformation. He was the power within everything. She was the light and the knowledge and the love of everything. And he told me his name, and I'd never heard it before. I was kind of scared, but I said, what is your name? And he said, Tahunta. I'd never heard of that. And then he gave me a second name. He said, Tarhunt. And then he says, go look it up. I looked it up. It was the oldest Indo-European sky god called Tahunta or Tarhunt. And his name, the Indo-European word for his name means he who pervades everything, which is translated as the conqueror. But he's the conqueror because he's the power within everything. And we associate that with lightning and storms because he's very intense and powerful in a dark, sort of wonderful way. And the female deity said that her name was Ilah. I'd never heard of that before. I sort of remembered Tarhunt, so I said maybe I thought I made that up. But when she said her name was Ilah, because I was calling her by another name. I was calling her by a sun goddess name that I knew of, and she didn't tell me I was wrong. She just sort of at the end corrected me and said Ilah. So I went and looked up Ilah, not Illah, but Ilah. And Ilah is the solar mother god in very deep, deep esoteric Vedic Hinduism. And so you have this. I had no idea this stuff existed. These guys introduced me to them. I'm telling you this because this is the world that we can live in. We can choose to live in a world where we can communicate directly with the consciousness of the universe. Now, if our ancestors lived in that universe, then having ETs come down and teach you how to build a pyramid is not going to be weird to them. Because their shamans are going to be communicating with all forms of consciousness in this universe. And for them, there's no difference. And for me, there's no difference, which is why when I listen to people talk about aliens and extraterrestrials, it's very hard for me to listen to because I understand because I believe the same way. They believe that they're these beings that are separate from us. And people get bent out of shape and obsessed over, what species are they and what do they look like? And, oh my God, let me get out my binoculars and see what kind of spaceship they have. I could care less about that. I could care less about what species they are, what color their skin is, whether they're tall or short, or have big or small eyes, or if they have, some of them have freaking antlers, some of them, are cats, some of them are insects. I could care less about that. And the reason why I couldn't care less about that is because I've been interacting with their essence, which is so amazingly powerful and beautiful. The other stuff doesn't matter to me. So these people lived in that. These people lived in a reality where there was this ladder of consciousness that, there's a powerful light being and he happens to have a body. There's that deity over there that doesn't have a body. And, oh, wow, I'm on this planet that is a deity herself. And, wow, she comes out through the plants and the plants talk to me and the ocean talks to me. There was one day, again, this is way back when I was just starting to work with these guys. And I had been, the first time that I made successful contact, a mantis being, very, very powerful mantis being, put his finger right here on my crown chakra. And that, whatever that did, changed me forever. I've never been the same since then. And now I can see and feel and communicate with things I never could communicate with before. I didn't even know you could do that. I knew it was there, so this is why most people have to, smoke DMT or take ayahuasca or do mushrooms so that they can have this experience. I've been living this for the past year and a half. This is the world I live in. I've really, really struggled with, have I lost my mind? Except when these entities will tell me things that then I go and prove, which I couldn't possibly have known before. I couldn't possibly have known that. Now we're dealing with how our ancestors used to live. So there's no doubt in my mind that people who created these portals, because that's what they are, were shamans. The shamans were probably the first scientists. They'd go into trance and meditation, they'd come out and they'd know, geometry and trigonometry, and they'd know exactly how to measure it. They'd know how to do that. So you wonder, how do these people know how to do that? Because they're connected directly to the conscious source of the universe. And they have access to beings that are millions and perhaps billions of years older than us, that have compiled all kinds of knowledge and technology that they have no problem sharing with us. Because their technology isn't based on making money. Our technology is based on warfare and money. Your cell phone. Your cell phone, the reason why you have a cell phone is because they can track you with it. They make huge amounts of money. People are addicted to cell phones. You can't do anything without it. It's getting to the point where you can't pay bills, or I can't go on an airplane without having an app on my phone. I can't, for instance, I can't get a visa here in Australia if I don't have an app on my phone, so they can track you. But those cell phones were first, high-tech communication devices for the military. Everything in this society is based on warfare and money. They did not. Our ancestors did not live that way. Our ancestors lived in a society that's based on consciousness and spirituality. That's why you have a society that can create these enormous things. So what I wanted to get to is the solar flash a transporter beam to 5D? And what got me thinking about that was, as I started going further into this experience, there was one day that ET came to me, just phased out of my visual spectrum. But he came to me and telepathically said, "Go outside." I didn't know why, so I got up and I went outside. And it was a beautiful night, beautiful moonlit night. I think the moon was full. And I kid you not, the moon started talking to me. Not in words, but I was getting this rush of energy, and I felt that higher dimensional energy, and the moon was communicating, saying hello. And and I'm glad nobody saw me, because I was staring up at the moon with my, I must have looked like I was high or something. I'm sure there was enough DMT in my brain that I was high, but as I'm staring at the moon, I'm asking myself, did the moon just talk to me? So I said, hello, moon. And, a second went by, and then moon said, hello, Mahadeva. And then all of a sudden, the star over there started talking to me. And so the stars and the moon start communicating with me. I'm like, what the heck? And it was clearly an understanding that the bodies of light in the sky are not just balls of gas or rocks. These are conduits of consciousness. And the stars are beings. For instance, the sun is our mother. I know you've heard that the sun is male, but that's a misunderstanding. When you go back far enough in time, you find that shamans universally see the sun as a goddess. But like all gods and goddesses, they have both masculine and feminine. So the internal part of the sun, the sunnah, is feminine. The rays, Ra, that's the god Ra, is not the god of the sun. He is the god of the rays of the sun. So the rays are actually hotter than the surface of the sun. The surface of the sun is incredibly hot. But once you get beyond the surface of the sun, the rays are actually hotter. So between that two, the feminine is going to be the cooler one. That's the sun herself. The rays are the masculine. But the sun is our mother. She is nothing but pure love. Pure, complete, the purest, just no judgment love. Pure love. And the stars are also portals to higher dimensions. I know this, again, from personal experience in meditation. You go into the stars, if you go through them, you end up in another dimension. Same with black holes. Black holes are actually, the sun is actually, the energy's coming out. So the higher dimensions are being blasted through the sun and other stars. This is why we have light in the third dimension. The third dimension is dark. There's no light here. Any light that we have is coming from higher dimensions. And I'm not saying that's coming from physicists. That's coming from scientists. Scientists will tell you all the light in the third dimension is leaking from the fifth dimension. So it is a portal where energy, higher dimensional energy, is coming to us into our third dimension. But if you want to actually take a portal that is going to higher dimensions, you dive into a black hole. Dive into a black hole, and that will take you to, because it's actually, the light is coming out the other side. You'll come out the other side into a realm of pure light. And so, as I think about this, I'm wondering what this event is going to be. Is there going to be a portal that will appear outside of the Earth when the solar flash hits? When we finally get the event that everybody will see around the world. I'm wondering if it's going to be an interdimensional portal. And my next thought is it going to be the same as what Native Americans say, who say that you have to leap? Your soul has to leap into that. I'm saying that because I've been told similar things. Listen, I'm not attached to any of this stuff. I don't need for any of it to be true. I won't lose an ounce of sleep if I turn out to be wrong about any of it. I won't lose any sleep about it. I've got no ego attached to it. But ETs came to me not too long ago and told me that there was going to be global acts of terrorism, which turns out to be true. Just right after that, we had all kinds of stuff happening. You know what it is. And in that same communication, they said that you're not going to be on this planet much longer. Your service to this planet has come to an end. People will think you have died. And then sort of a vision of me jumping into the sky like Superman. I didn't know what to do with any of that. It was very frightening to me. I got to be honest with you. That wasn't a pleasant experience. That frightened the hell out of me. I'm more comfortable with it now. My consciousness has learned to deal with it better. But it makes me wonder if the Native Americans were right. Maybe when this hits, people who are ready for it, who have been doing the work, whose vibration is up to that, who aren't afraid of it, maybe they'll go, oh, it's time. And phew, maybe it'll be a transporter beam that'll take us to the new 5D Earth. But it also makes me think about, now that I experience the having been communicated to by stars, and especially the energy that is directed, the communication that comes to me from the sun herself, the feelings of love, feelings of warmth, the feelings of kindness, just when I interact with her, she's just, just the ultimate loving being, ultimate loving mother, who I now know wants me to call her Illah. That's the name she wants me to call her. Makes me think about what temples really are. So again, if we go listen to Graham Hancock, he's going to say that humans were seeking to leave Earth through these portals. In the pyramid, the shafts in the pyramid where the light of Sirius would shine in directly into the Queen's chamber, for example, or the King's chamber, he might say that is so that the soul can leave. What if it's the other way around? What if temples are transporter beams for higher dimensional beings, for the gods themselves, and they use the stars, the light of the stars, as their highway? I've heard this before. Other people who interact with higher dimensional beings say that they've seen beings appear out of light. Fire, starlight, sunlight, street lamps. So there's something about light itself that higher dimensional beings can travel simply through that light. And so we look at temples all over the world, like Stonehenge. We know that Stonehenge is designed for this very reason. It's designed to bring into the center of that circle, that sacred circle, the light of the rising sun on the equinox, which, by the way, if I understand correctly, the fall equinox is tomorrow, right? Or this is the solstice. This is for the solstice. So what if way back when it wasn't just a bunch of hunter-gatherers standing there and blindly worshiping the sun as it comes over some arbitrary point on some arbitrary day? But what if it's actually a portal through which there is a transporter, a portal that is created by humans so that when this light comes in, it intensifies the consciousness? Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if after showing up, the light comes through and a being appears, an energy appears, a higher dimensional being appears, communicates directly with people. This is where we're headed. This is 5D. When we look at, I think this is the temple at Abydos. But look at that. That is clearly designed. The ancients clearly designed to focus the light into the temple. And as is the case with the pyramids are built where water comes in, and you've got water which creates electromagnetism, and you've got this combination of starlight and sunlight and water and electromagnetism, and you've got granite, which is basically a giant crystal. And what you have is an extremely advanced teleportation system. Does it give people the ability to teleport their soul to other dimensions? Does it give other dimensional beings an ability to come and manifest in front of you and communicate with you? The Vedics believe that what we call Halloween, that the fall equinox, I don't know what it is, I don't know, whatever. But whatever that is, whatever solar event that is, that Halloween is, they say that in times past, this was the day that you communicated with your ancestors. Like you physically communicated with them. They would appear in front of you, and you would sit down and you would talk to them, and they would teach you and share things with you. This is where we used to function. Again, when you look at the interior of the pyramids, there is evidence of a huge cataclysm. There are cracks in the walls, like there was an explosion. There is evidence of fire, massive fire throughout the pyramids. There's obviously water as well. There's something happened where these machines broke. Something broke them. So they stopped working. When you look into a lot of the lore about the pyramids were designed to create a protective aura around the earth, because the people there who built the pyramids knew that Kali Yuga was coming. They knew that there was going to be a dark time when people's consciousness would be taken from them. And so the pyramids were designed to create an aura around the earth so that people wouldn't lose their connection to the divine. And then there was some cataclysm. And there's probably numerous cataclysms. And the Ice Age event is probably the most recent reset. So if that happened, 13,000 years ago, there was a reset 13,000 years ago. This is a reset. We're heading towards this. But instead of the cataclysm that is talked about, where floods and fires destroyed the world, and civilization was destroyed, because consciousness is falling, going from higher to lower, heading towards Kali Yuga. We've now gone through Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga actually ended in 1700. I know you've been told different, but that's inaccurate. Kali Yuga ended in 1700. We're now in Dvapara Yuga. We're ascending upward. We're getting more conscious, not less. And the war that is being exacted on human beings is the last gasp of Kali Yuga. Because every time you shift into a new, like right now we're moving towards spring, and so it's bouncing back and forth between hot and sunny and cold and rainy. Like yesterday it was really warm and humid, and then within a few hours it was rainy and cold. It's because we're moving out of winter into spring. So we're moving out of Kali Yuga, the winter of the soul, into spring and summer of the soul, and the last gasp of winter is this attack on human beings. And as you can see, the deep state, they're doing huge amounts of damage, but they're not able to gain any ground and keep it. They're losing ground every single day. And so there's going to be a reset, I believe. And I believe that the solar flash event is going to be a reset where we get to shift up. So if there's going to be a destroyed civilization, it won't be ours. It's going to be the dark force civilization will have a disastrous ending. And perhaps they will be on an earth that will get destroyed. Perhaps their dimensional experience will be an earth where there's fires and floods and all kinds of horrible things. But for those of us, assuming I'm lucky enough to be one of them, those of us who shift upward, it's going to be a reset where we will shift into a higher state of being. As I said, I don't know what that's going to mean. If I take the messages that I believe I've heard literally, it's going to be like we're going to get beamed up to another dimension. If that's not literal, then it's going to at the very least feel that way. And I do believe that there will be a period of time where there will be an opportunity where people can make the decision which way they want to go. But all of that is yet to be seen. I don't know any of that. All right, so I've talked long enough. I tried to get all the information in that I wanted to get in. As I said before, this channel is about giving you tools to evolve. Since today is the 22nd, we've got one more day of 923.thunderwizard.com. 923.thunderwizard.com. If you go there, you will get access to all of my video teachings, which is, by the way, different from the subscription. But all of the video courses and teachings, you will get access to all of them for $239. If I were to give them out individually at their original prices, it'd be over $5,000. That's only going to last until tomorrow, unless I get beamed up to the Starship Enterprise. We're going to go back to normal. So this is your last day if you want to take advantage of that. But I also recommend strongly, even if you do get that, everybody subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge. There's so much information in there. Can't even tell you all the different stuff that's in there, but all of the most important information is there, and you'll have access to that as long as you subscribe. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. And of course, my books. We talked a lot about Christianity, so I would recommend Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward. That will explain to you what actually happened and why Abrahamic monotheism was invented. Get the book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. If you master what's in that book, that is how people will intuitively live in 5D Earth. I also recommend Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth. Learn what it means to be able to manifest from infinite probabilities. And Interdimensional Revolution, where I prove to you almost everything you've heard about ETs is a lie. All right, that's it. I'm all done. If there are any questions, I'm only taking questions from people who are subscribed to the 90-Day Challenge, and I recognize you. Let me see if there is any such questions here. Okay. Honest feeling from Cats and me. I feel love and readiness for the next chapter in our relationship with the universe. Now, my last advice to you is take everything that I've said with a grain of salt. Act as though it's true, which means get rid of all of the fear, get rid of all of the anger, get rid of all of the victim mentality. Do the 12-step work that I have in here, the 12 steps to 5D. Do that work, especially step 4, to relieve yourself of any resentments, any anger, any regrets. Get rid of all of that baggage so that you can be free and open to shift up. Start doing that as though this is going to happen tomorrow. Because even if it doesn't come, trust me, you'll thank me for it. There's no reason to be upset. You can still be happy. If it doesn't come, you'll still be happy. If it does come, so much the better. What I do with this information, when I get these communications, I take it at face value, meaning I choose to believe it no matter how incredible or unbelievable it is, but I don't become emotionally attached to it. So that if things work out differently or if I've misinterpreted things, I'm not going to be upset about it. So I'm not going to lose any sleep if the flash doesn't come. I'm not a cult leader. This isn't a religion. I'm happy to continue living life the way that I am, but I'm also available and ready, and I'm acting as though it is going to come. So live your life based on your soul, bottom line. Do what gives you joy. Don't live your life for fame, money, reputation, approval. Don't waste your time with that. Don't get into relationships that don't serve your soul. Don't stay connected to people that bring you down. Get out of all of the toxic relationships. Seek to heal the toxicity within yourself. Find a teacher, find a mentor. And if you take advantage of these tools that I'm giving you, you'll have a much better chance of not only being happier, but being able to manifest the reality that you want. Last thing I'm going to say is, in your interdimensional meditations, start focusing on creating your perfect fantasy world. Follow the energy. Ask the ETs to help you. What is it that I really want? What kind of world do I want to live in? Where am I designed? Who am I really? What am I? You know, because when you find out you're a deity instead of this tiny little being, your reality that you're imagining is going to be a lot more fantastic and amazing. So in your meditations, create the reality that you want. All right, I'm done. That's it. Thank you all. I love you all very much. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for being on the channel and supporting the channel, helping me keep the lights on. And as always, if the flash don't come and if I don't get beamed up to the Starship Enterprise, I will see you all very soon. I love you all. Thank you very much.